What are your memories of when the NWA or Jim Crockett Promotions more specifically? Do you remember when it started faltering? Because as far as I can gather, audience was still there, tickets were still being sold, but there was sort of financial mismanagement. Do you remember the first time you sort of learned of that, and maybe things weren't going quite as well as they should have been?
Well, the Savannah, Georgia story I just told you was kind of really rumors were flying around. So I guess Crockett had to kind of, say kind of again give the State of the Union. Essentially, the way I understand it, what happened is, Jim Crockett was a mom and pop organization. It was run by the Crockett family for 50 plus years. And we exploded. I mean, business exploded, and it was growing fast. And Crockett had purchased a Gulfstream plane, a private plane. Then he purchased a Falcon jet. Instead of flying commercial, we started flying privately, which we loved. I mean, hey, you don't have to go to a commercial airport and go through, all the rigmaroles of checking bags. No, you just roll up onto the tarmac, hand your bag to the pilot, and he throws it on the plane, and you park your car and walk up on the plane, without a ticket. I mean, we loved it, right? I mean, it was great. But I think that was part of the problem was Crockett was overspending. I mean, the purchase of two private planes, it comes at a hefty price, right? Having pilots on payroll, on full-time payroll, even though they're not flying every day, is a price, right? So I think what happened, the way I understand it, is there was overspending, and then the guy that was doing their books, the bookkeeper, I think his name was Dave. I don't remember for sure, but he was used to running a small organization, and when millions and millions of dollars started flowing in, it was months that went by. I mean, it was 6, 7, 8, 9 months that went by before they really realized we're no longer in the black, we're in the red because of overspending. And it was almost like, how do we dig ourselves out of this hole? And of course, as many know, the result of which was he sold the company to Ted Turner.
Well, when he did sell this company to Ted Turner, I believe that was October 1988. What major changes did you see backstage?
Man, it went from a family-owned business to corporate America. Let's just start with that. It went from walking out of your office and into another and having a conversation to Dusty telling me one time he couldn't even have a conversation with the guy next in the office next to him. He'd have to send an email so to be documented in case there was any misunderstanding of communication. I'm like, so every conversation has to be documented. I'm like, dude, that's crazy, right? But it was corporate America. They started levying fines and started setting times that you had to be at the building. And if you weren't, then you were going to be fined $1,000 or whatever. They had the goons there looking. If you're supposed to be there at 7:30 and you got there at 7:31, they'd send your name in. And so in my view, personally, they started really taking the fun out of it. Now, for the record, I then began to like less and less the business from that aspect outside of the ring. I still love getting in the ring and entertaining the fans, but all of the politics outside of the ring just took the majority of fun for me away from it. And I mean, the tensions just got a little higher. Now you got road agents, they're kind of watching you like a hawk. The sixth man, I think it was in Norfolk, Virginia, they fined me $1,000. And Bill Watts at this point had the book, Cowboy Bill Watts. And I went right to Watts and I go, hey, what the heck? What's this for? What the heck? He goes, well, it was reported that you guys were lazy in your match and you didn't give people, a top performance. I go, well, that's a bunch of that's gar. I go, who reported that? So he said who the agent was, and I said, I want the agent and you in a room along with the rest of us. I want to hear from his mouth that he witnessed that. Well, long and short of the story is it turns out he didn't witness it. He was off doing something else. Somebody else at the show that night told him that, and so he just wrote it up and reported. All that to say, I got the $1,000 fine for all of us rescinded, and so it's just things like that you're like, wow, man, really? So anyway, those are a few of the stories.
Well, I mean, we can't also go to the sale of Ted Turner without the installation of Jim Herd as the head booker. Any stories about Jim
The
Herd?
Pizza Man.
The Pizza Man.
The Pizza Man. Yeah. Yeah, Jim qualified to run a wrestling company because he ran a TV station that aired wrestling in the 1960s. So certainly that qualifies you to run a wrestling company. I mean, for sure. Again, the change of corporate America. So Ted Turner loved wrestling, but he wasn't going to run the wrestling company. He hired guys, right? I'll just say this. It was what they say in the South and maybe other places. Maybe this happens for you over there in England. It was the good old boys system. So if you're in the inner circle, if you're part of the good old boys club, you can get a job whether you qualify for it or not. And so Jim was a friend of one of the guys, one of the executives overseeing World Championship Wrestling, which was just a portfolio in Turner's financial empire, right? It was just one of his many businesses. And so I would scratch my head many times in decisions that Jim Herd would make. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, this makes zero sense. This makes no sense, but I'm not the boss. Okay.
Do you remember if he ever tried to sort of adjust your character in wrestling, like the old story with Ric Flair, where he tried to get him to shave his head and call him Spartacus? Did he ever try and get you to grow your hair out and call you I don't know what?
No, he did not. I just kept my distance from Jim. And now I did grow my hair out, but it wasn't because of Jim Herd. It was actually kind of was modeling kind of when Rocky IV came out, and that's a whole nother story for another time. You know, Dolph Lundgren and I screen tested for Rocky IV. Lundgren got the role. I was just too big for the role. I mean, I was 285 pounds, and Stallone's 165. You know, dripping wet, and so it was just I just overshadowed him for real. Anyway, and when that movie came out and I looked at Lundgren's haircut in the movie, I thought, that's kind of a cool Russian look. So that's why I did a short stint with the hair. And looking back, I'm like, that was great. I should have just kept the ball. But anyway, I gave it a shot.